Hey, what is going on, everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and welcome back to another episode of Mario's Minute. For those who do not know, this here is my second podcast. My main podcast, Mod Chat, is one which is going to be a little more structured, well-edited, I guess you could say, and there's more of a visual component to it in which I talk about things I find new, interesting, cool, what have you in the world of video game modding, video game console modding, and all that good stuff there. Sometimes there's a little bit of a show and tell component, but it's a good time there most of the time. However, this is not that. This here is Mario's Minute, which, as I said, is my second podcast in which I come on here and I talk to you all about whatever the hell I want to. Sometimes I have a guest on, sometimes I don't. I try to be consistent about that, but I know I am inconsistent with it at times, including this month, so my apologies there. Usually I try to get a guest on every other month, but you all know how that goes. Sometimes scheduling is scheduling, and sometimes it just does not work like that. So this is even an episode, you know what, and I guess a month, where I didn't really have anything specific I was wanting to target or like really talk about or throw out. So I was like, there's kind of just like some random things I have in my head. We're just going to talk about that, and this is a great example of that. I guess hopefully, we'll see. I still have, the rest of this episode to record, so I don't know what's going to be happening by the end of this here. But either way, this is available in two different forms. It is available in a video visual form here on the Mr. Mario 2011 YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey channels, and it is available in an audio-only form, like an actual podcast. Simply look up Mario's Minute on your favorite podcasting app, host, provider, or platform, and you should hopefully be able to find it. I know it's not available on all of them, but it is available on most of them. Either way, let's go ahead and just jump into this here. So, this was the most random story I had thought of. For some reason, it was coming across my head this morning here, and I said, you know what, this might be something to talk about with you all. This is a story from, goodness, when was this? When was this here? This had to be 11 or 12 years ago, somewhere along those lines. I think it was probably about 12 years ago. This is back when I was in college, and it was one of my best friends. We would hang out pretty regularly. And this was at the time, he was like, both of us were single. So, like two single guys talking about their problems. I think a lot of people are going to know how that's going to go. But he was more active for like looking for someone and such. And there was one person who we had both known, but I guess she ended up reaching out to him. And to add some more to the context of it, it was one of those, it was still, we didn't really know that much about MLMs or multi-level marketing. And those are one of the things in life, like I hate. Just do not rock with it. You can look up anti-MLM. You can go down the rabbit hole there, and you can just get annoyed by this. And they are sneakier about it now too. So it's actually kind of a good read to see like who is going to be actually like in these MLMs, trying to recruit, trying to sell you something, trying to get you in their upline, all that. Just a lot of stuff I don't like there. But the way she had approached him was, in short, she was trying to sell Amway products. And it wasn't like that at all. It was, at first, like, it was when they were, I wouldn't say sneaky, but they were going to be more, how do I put it? Friendly about it, more personal, I can say. So she reached out to him saying like, hey, it's been a while since we talked, just wanted to see how you were doing, all this stuff. And, they're talking back and forth. And of course she brings up, hey, I've started a business, and, I'm kind of selling these like health supplements and all that. And I wanted to know if you would be interested. And of course he was interested, but he was also interested in her as well too, which I'm sure like she used to his advantage there. To her advantage actually. And spoiler alert here, no money was exchanged, thankfully. So like no product was bought, none of that stuff, right? So that's good. We didn't support it there. But I bring this up. I think we're going to go in a story within a story here, so we're doing some storyception. I bring this up because there was one night, he was talking to me this week about like, talking with her and all that stuff, trying to hang out and all that. And there was one night, or I think it was actually during the day, pretty much she wanted to give him the sales pitch, and she was like, yeah, you can just come on over. And he asked me to come with him. I was like, okay, sure. So I'm essentially, being the good friend, being the wingman there. She already knew me, so we go over like everything's friendly, all that good stuff. And, we're talking a bit, and she like pulls up her laptop and she's showing the stuff. She's got her own like web page and everything with it too. And the things I remember was there was like one of them was like one of those like water products where it's supposed to have like, I guess like extra benefits for you, like health wise and everything. And she was talking about like, yeah, I wasn't able to do like this stuff before, this running, and now I'm able to go like this much further. And I remember there was like some kind of like herbal supplement pill, and she was offering a few of them to us. And I was like, no, I'm good. Because I'm just like, I don't want to take that stuff. I don't know what's in it, whatever. And it's funny because later on, like, my friend was talking with his family about it. And his family was like, hey, did your friend, like, as in me, he's like, did your friend take that pill? Can you text him, right? Like, call him, actually. Like, did he take that pill? And I was like, no, I didn't. I did not. And they're like, okay, phew, all right, we're good. I'm like, no, I wasn't going to take it. But so that was a whole other thing that was going on there. But either way, my friend also later on, when we would like retell this story, he said I wasn't a great wingman because he essentially said like, we're sitting on the couch, there's a hot girl right there, right in front of us, and I'm the one playing with the dog. Because her roommate had this adorable small dog who pretty much just acted like a cat with a dog skin enabled on it. And I thought this dog was absolutely adorable. So I got a photo of me with this dog as well too. But I'm like playing with it, petting it, like giving it the attention, all that stuff. And to that, I said to my friend when he was saying I was a bad wingman, I was like, look, dude, like you were interested in her. I was not interested in her. Like I was coming along for support. And, I just didn't want to get in the way. Like if I was trying to make a move, that'd be a dick move right there. But I'm not doing that, right? I was just hanging out with the dog, which the dog was adorable. I did not mind doing that. So essentially, it kind of gets to this point where I think even like by the end, we didn't buy anything because it was like something where she was wanting us to get like a hefty amount of product, right? And he was kind of like, whoa, not really wanting to get that much here. And I think she gave us like some samples too. It was one of them was like a health bar, and the other one was like a bottle of that water. But he wasn't ready to make that purchase yet. And I think even like with it as well too, I remember I had asked, I was like, because I didn't know it was Amway, but I was like, okay, can we get like a discount through you or something? And she kind of like hesitated. She's like, yeah, I think we can do that. And then I remember like she couldn't get like payment set up, or like the payment just didn't work. I don't quite remember what happened, but I just remember we left without exchanging any goods or services or any money, thankfully there. But the reason why I bring this up is because this is something like my friend and I will still reference from time to time. This is the storyception part, even though I've already told like one or two stories within this one here. We're sitting there and we start talking about someone that we all mutually knew. And the story was essentially this person who them two mutually knew, I guess at one point was talking with my friend, and she was saying that she was on a diet. And she was like, grumbling and talking about and all this stuff, right? And like a few days later, like 2 or 3 days later, my friend was going to hang out with her, and he's like, hey, I'm going to McDonald's. Like, do you want anything? And she comes back with like almost like a prepared statement with like such specifics. And just the example, it was something like, yeah, I want to get a number 2, but can you add these things on it? And I don't want this right here. And then I want to get a medium fry. And then I'd like to get a large Sprite, but don't put more than 2 ice cubes in there. I remember that detail. Don't put more than 2 ice cubes. And I remember the first time he told me this, it was hilarious because I'm just like, this is not a meal you eat when you're on a diet. And he's like, I know, that's what I was wondering. I'm like, didn't you just say you're on a diet? But like, you have the McDonald's menu memorized, and not only that, you're asking for like such specific changes here that need to be made, or like such specific requests. So I remember I told that story. I essentially retold it. And like, I'm laughing a bit. My friend's laughing. The girl who's selling Amway, I don't know what was up, but she's sitting there, and she just had like straight, like beautiful girl, right? But she had a straight up Bowser laugh. When you start Mario 64 and you walk into Peach's castle and you hear the ominous Bowser laugh, it was pretty similar to that laugh. And I just remember, like, this might even be a bad interpretation of it here, But she's just there, and you could tell she's finding it funny, but she was almost moving in slow motion, and she's like, oh, 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 oh. Kind of like a laugh like that. And I remember I just look over at my friend looks over at me. We did not say anything. And it's something that, 12 years later, that we still remember this vividly. And I remember even at the time afterwards, like, I think it was like a day later, I mentioned the laugh. He's like, dude, I know. And it was like, it was so weird because, like, do you think she was high? And I was like, no, she wasn't. She was not. He's like, okay, well, so if it wasn't that, like, I mean, the story was funny, don't get me wrong, but, like, dude, it wasn't, like, that funny. And, like, the laugh, it was so loud, and it was so long, too. And I just told her, I was like, did she, is this like that Family Guy moment where it's like, you're dating a hot girl, she has a really ugly laugh, and I showed him the clip, and he laughed and agreed with that. And I'm like, she went down a few points for you, right? And he said, yeah. So that's, that was one of the Bowser laughs there. I think the only person that she's the only person I've run into who's had a Bowser laugh like that. The context did not make sense for that laugh. Like I said, I knew her before. Never heard her laugh like that. Haven't heard anyone laugh like that afterwards. And it's still just a joke that we'll have. Like, sometimes I'll message my friend, we'll just reference that laugh, and we'll just, like, bust out laughing there. So hopefully you all could get a laugh or two from there, with all the laughter, of course. I wanted to drop, I'm going to drop this in here real quick, right? So at the end of these episodes, I typically like to talk about like what games I'm currently playing. And I want to say this here, I've been very hesitant to talk about this game as much publicly because I don't want to be one of those people who just talks about this game consistently and then it makes it like their personality and then like annoys other people instead of getting them interested in the game. But it is about Expedition 33, but I promise this is kind of just a quick thing here that was in my offline life that kind of came from the online life. So this guy, I don't really mind saying his name, and you're going to get a shout out. So hey Devin, how's it going? But I don't mind saying that because he's been on the channel quite a bit. He's a paranoid coder. He was my former mod chat host as well too. And it was funny because sometimes I'll get these like blasts of like online stuff or like they'll leak out like while I'm offline. So essentially last month I talked about my thoughts with this game. And then like maybe a week or two later, I end up getting a random message from him. And he says something along the lines of, hey dude, so I just listened to this Mario's Minute, right? And you got me really interested in Expedition. Specifically when you said like, it kind of dethroned or like you graduated from Kingdom Hearts. That's what got me right there. And I was just like, dude, yes, I don't want to talk about it much further because I don't want to spoil it for you, but I definitely recommend playing it. And he was saying, I've been getting back to gaming a little more. I'd like to play something. But the thing that got him, the reason why I'm sharing this is because he was still a little bit hesitant on it. And I was like, dude, I really think you're going to like this game. And he was still like, kind of like, I'll probably play it, but like, I just got to set up the time. And I just straight up told him, I was like, dude, Devin, how about this? You get the game, you play. If you really like don't think it's that good, I will refund you. And he was just kind of stunned with that. And I'm like, no, that's how much I believe in this game, okay? But my contingency is you can't just like sit there and play the game for like 4 hours and then be like, it was mid, or like I'm not really like, no, you need to actually give it like a proper play. You need to like really give yourself an opportunity to enjoy this, which I'm sure he will. But yeah, no, that was that was a little bit of an Expedition moment right there. But that's also how much I do love that game and how much I appreciate and believe in it. But also just a little bit of one of those moments of like when the online stuff leaks into offline. Sometimes it's okay. Other times I'm like, hey, can we just keep it on YouTube? But that one's fine. One of the things that I've been playing around with recently here was the recent SSD upgrade. I want to talk about it here, and I'm probably going to talk about it more on Mod Chat just because it will be more contextually sensitive right there, because it's sensitive to context. If you know that reference, awesome. I love you for that. But no, I want to talk about SSDs on there. Now, this has been a little bit of a contingency for a bit because I was one of those people, I'll be honest, I was one of those people, I believed because the SATA not the SATA type on the Xbox 360 is SATA 1. It's not even SATA 2. I don't really like what these companies did. Like even like the last generation, that's generation 8. To my recollection, the PS4 and the Xbox One had SATA 2 interfaces on them. Even the Xbox One X, like Microsoft had shown like there were like data sheets or something that came out for it as well too, like in like official like Microsoft stuff that like they publicly released, not leaked out or anything. Like even on the One X, it's a SATA 2 interface. The PS4 Pro, I believe, I could stand to be corrected, but I believe the only console last generation that actually had a SATA 3 interface in it was the PS4 Pro specifically. And even then, like it was, I mean, it was a nice experience on there, but it's not as like dramatic of an upgrade as you would expect from like, you know, going from a hard drive to SSD in your PC. The point being, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because for years and years and years, people have been saying like, dude, what if you put an SSD in a 360? What if you put one in a PS3? Imagine how fast it'd be. And I'm just like, well, it's not really going to be that much faster. Not really. And my belief on that and even my experiences from like, I have a PS3 Super Slim. Years ago, I took a 128 gig SSD I didn't care about. I just popped it in there because I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to use and abuse this thing. This system is my guinea pig. I'm just going to, you know, do whatever on here. And it didn't really make a huge difference from my usage on there compared to using a system with a hard drive on there. I do see the benefits. It's not like you're going to get worse performance on there, but especially at the time when SSDs were more expensive, I just didn't really see the cost analysis benefit there. But now at this point, SSDs are much more affordable, much more affordable. I'm still like, I'm old enough where I remember the excitement where I think it was about 2012 or so. People were banking on, it was electric with excitement, all right? People were banking on the idea and salivating over the thought that by the end of the year 2012 that SSDs could get down to $1 per gigabyte. Because back then, like it was like SSDs were much smaller and they were much more expensive. And the thing I always heard was like, man, I'm like really suffering. I have this 64 gig SSD in my computer, and all I can do is put Windows on there and like install one game, but it's so fast, man. It's so fast. And I'm sitting there with like a 500 gig boot drive or a 1 terabyte boot drive, and I'm like, no, I can't survive off 64 gigs. but back then, when you would upgrade to an SSD, you did all the little hacks. You changed things to different drives. You kept your SSD clean because it's like, look, I only have 64 gig. I only have 128 gig, but I'm not sacrificing this speed. It's one of those things, once you go there, you can't go back. So a lot of people have had this interpretation that they would get the same benefits on consoles. And the benefits are there. The loading times and such with things will go down, but it is, again, I stress it, not nearly as dramatic as what people would expect. But I will say, I've been surprised. So on the Xbox 360, for years we've been able to pretty much toss any drive in there and format it as long as you have a hard modded system. So when I end up building out like my own like dream RGH system, it's like my Halo 4 system. I built it out probably 2 years ago now. I had an extra 1 terabyte SSD. I had gotten it on sale at one point, and I was starting a fresh system there. So I said, you know what? I'm not even migrating any data. I'm just going to pop everything on here. And so far, my experience using that for about 2 years, it's been pretty great. Games have been running just fine on there. Loading times, I'll be honest, I haven't really timed between a hard drive and an SSD. Those tests just bore me. I'm just going to be so honest with you. So I don't really do that. But the biggest thing I immediately noticed was any type of dashboard operation, specifically in homebrew dashboards, so much better, so much smoother. My main SSD that I have like in my main system has about 400 games on it, and I use Aurora as my dashboard. And when I boot it up and when I scroll through it, it's smooth. It's great. When Aurora boots up and the index file has to load in, you know, you see in like the bottom right where it scans all your games and stuff, it is so fast. When you pick a game, when you hit A, you know, it loads in incredibly fast. Those have been the biggest benefits, like doing anything menu related there. While as, and I've done this enough times so I can see the difference, while as then I go to like a system with a hard drive setup, and it could be a system that has like 30 games on it, right? And I'm talking, mine has 400 games. This one could have like 30 games on a hard drive, and it's slowing down. It's chugging when you're just going through the menus, just trying to look through your games, look through your cover flow. So that has been the biggest difference with using an SSD. But I'm bringing this up here because not only I've been using it for 2 years there, but the more recent thing has been now SSDs are working on all Xbox 360s. And that is thanks to a piece of software that Eaton, who works on the Fat Explorer software, who released it and everything, great piece of software. But he has ended up officially releasing a component with it, which is the SSD maker. Now, people were really excited about this because there was a lot of research done. I believe Sky started doing some work on this. SKYE, shout out to her. Sky started doing work on this like over a year or so ago. That's when I was covering it. And she was using professional grade hardware, right? Like very expensive software, professional grade hardware. But she was able to reflash SSDs to work on the Xbox 360. For anybody who's sitting here wondering, like, dude, I just bought a RGH, I threw in a drive, it works. Like, what's the big deal? The big deal is that on a retail system, meaning a system that has not been the NAND has not been modified in any way, so a bad update system or just a stock retail, like a bog standard system, you can only put a hard drive in there if it has a security sector on it. Microsoft is the only entity that can make security sectors for these drives. The limit is 500 gigabytes on them. So you can't just take an off-the-shelf drive and throw it in and format it. You can do that on a hard-modded system, but not a regular retail system, not a bad update system. You can't do it on those ones, unfortunately. Which I think is a shame, because I will say it's now, like, you know, looking at almost 20, it's, wow, that's terrifying to think of. Almost 20 years later, good Lord, yeah, we're coming up on, like, wow, okay. Yeah, in about 2 months, so it's going to be 20 years old. So, getting back to it at least. When you're looking at all this here for the Xbox 360 itself, it seems to be like one of the more resilient systems outside of, you know, the red ring issue and such. But what I mean is, like, it can be pretty self-contained. Like, you don't have to have a working DVD drive. You don't even have to have one plugged in and it will work. You don't have to have a hard drive in there. You're probably going to be really annoyed. You're going to be miserable, but you don't have to have a hard drive in there. But having it is going to help out. You need backwards compatibility. It's going to require that hard drive. Of course, for big updates and such, and just for even like game installs and all that too. And with the way some games like cache their data, I know Halo 3 is one of those examples where it uses the DVD drive and then it caches it into a certain way on the hard drive, and then it's able to load it up better. So there's just you run into limitations if you don't have them, but they're not required. Only some games require them. So the reason why I've been excited about this is because hard drives are not, they're not really as plentiful for just completely stock systems. They've been dying. They've been harder to find. You cannot, unless you find dead stock, like you go to a Walmart that just they forgot a hard drive like 8 years ago. You cannot go to a store and just buy a brand new Xbox 360 hard drive. They haven't produced them in years, the Microsoft certified ones. If you go to like a GameStop or something and get one, you're going to be getting a used one. And there was a way, this is what I did back in the day, you could reflash certain Western Digital drives, which did perform better. From my experiences, they were faster and they performed better than the stuff that Microsoft was sending into their systems. Unfortunately, because of what Western Digital has changed on their drives, you can't do that on any drive really manufactured in 2020 or later. So unfortunately, your options have been to either track down an old Xbox 360 certified drive or to find a Western Digital hard drive, which is at least, at the time of recording this, at least 5 years old, and reflash that, which are, both of them are not great options. With SSDs being so much more affordable and being a lot more ubiquitous now, where there's people even like myself, for example, I have my desktop next to me, and this desktop is all flash storage. I have an external hard drive hooked up to it, but internal to the system, I don't have any spinning platters in here. The only things that are spinning on this system are the fans. That's it. And a lot of people are doing that. There's less and less of a want for hard drives, I would say, especially again when you're like seeing the prices on them. So the SSD maker has been really exciting, and I had never used an SSD on a stock 360 quite simply because I couldn't until now. But what ended up happening was, once I worked on the video and everything, I'd had a drive already to the side, ready to go for this. I ended up reflashing it with this security sector file, thanks to the SSD maker. And I'll tell you this, There is a nice difference. There's a nice difference. I'm sorry for doubting that earlier. When it comes to games, I have seen other people do comparisons. And essentially, the gains you're going to get in your games, it's not going to be as big as you would expect. Now, there's been some people where, like, when they test them, like loading from here to there or loading up this game or whatever it is, you might have a half-second difference, a 1-second difference, maybe a 2-second difference. It is going to be more performant on the SSD. The SSD will perform better than the hard drive, but it's not going to be as dramatic. Like, you're not going to, if you have a game that takes 2 minutes to load, it's not going to take 8 seconds to load on the SSD. That same game, maybe one of the more dramatic ones, if there's a game that takes maybe, let's say, like 40 seconds to load, it could take like 32 seconds on the SSD, something like that. It could take even less, it could take more, maybe. It's always going to perform better than the hard drive, and it's not necessarily because of the throughput of SATA 1. It's more that you don't have to worry about these seek times on there, and especially if there's a lot of like scattered random files, or even just if these hard drives are old, they're going to have these issues. So it's been nice to at least have that. But the biggest difference that I've noticed, the biggest difference for me, is any dashboard usage. Even just completely stock. Like, I have this SSD, I have a dual NAND system, so like just for fun, because I still like to just like boot up into a stock environment. I can't fully explain it, but I still like having that available. Then, I hold down a button and I'm able to boot into my modified environment. But either way, I have 2 drives for them, and I ended up cutting over my hard drive over to my SSD. And then I started like reinstalling my games and such on there, and I just went through my digital collection and I added a bunch of stuff because I was like, if I'm gonna mess around with this more, I want to actually like have the content for it. And man, I'll tell you this, I was shocked at how much snappier. I know it's the buzzword from the Xbox One in like 2013, but truly how much snappier the old Xbox 360 dashboard is on that SSD. This is not on a modified one, this is on a retail one here. When you're connected to Xbox Live, it is still slow, mind you. It's still going to be slow, and really any slowdown comes to the Xbox Live connection, because Xbox Live on the Xbox 360 has kind of just sucked for several years at this point. I promise you, it used to be a lot better. It used to be quicker. It used to be faster. But of course, so many years into the Xbox One's life cycle, they kind of just stopped caring. And of course, the Xbox Series has been out for 5 years now at this point. So there's even less of a need to care on there. So if you're on there and you're just wondering why it's so slow and sluggish and there's errors and all that stuff, that's just how it's been for several years. And I don't think it's going to get better. However, when things are working properly, like the biggest example has been, if you just go to the My Games category, all the games just load in instantly. You can scroll to the left, scroll to the right, everything loads in just fine. If you're waiting for cover art to populate, again, that's going to be an issue with the connection to Xbox Live, but like actually seeing populating your games, like navigating through menus, doing all that, especially like you go into like the settings, system storage, and like check the storage right there, everything is just so much faster when it just comes to anything that needs to be indexed, anything that needs to be searched. It's so much quicker. It's like, it's almost instant at times. Really, the only thing that's slowing it down is just the connection and the hardware itself. That's it. But I was shocked at how much of a pleasure really it was to play on that system again, like just in a stock capacity there. So it's been a good upgrade. It's been a very good upgrade, especially when, like I said, now for the first time in years, it's not just RGH systems. It's now any system. You do have to still run that script, not a script. You have to run that application. And you are going to need to find a compatible drive. And I know Eaton is working on getting more and more drives compatible, but the ones that are compatible are still pretty easy to get your hands on. They're pretty affordable as well, too. There's different price ranges depending on your storage and all that stuff. But even then, even a lot of people are just like, dude, that a 500 gigabyte SSD, like a SATA SSD, is so inexpensive now. There's not really much of a reason to get like a 250 gig or a 320. Like, just get a 500. I know for myself, my 500 gigabyte SSD, I paid probably $32 for it, something like that. Absolutely worth it, in my opinion there. So it's been good. It's been good, like, restoring life to that. And especially because, again, there's like, I'm even thinking of like, there's people who they just don't want to mod their Xbox 360, and that's totally fine. There's people who don't want to maybe they can't for whatever reason, like if they're like running a game shop or something like that, but they need to put drives in their system, or they just need a drive overall, they need something reliable. Like if there's people who they want to get rid of like stock 360s they have and they're missing drives, they can now purchase SSDs, flash them up, get them all set up, and get them in these systems that now for the first time. And that is awesome. So I like this change quite a bit. It's been a really good year for the Xbox 360 in terms of the modding scene, the homebrew scene, and all that. And we haven't even talked about a bad avatar on here. And I'm gonna save that one for mod chat. But no, it's been a good time so far. So SSDs on the Xbox 360, yes, that's my that's my opinion there. So. Yeah, I was just looking at this here. The next thing I want to talk about is, like I said, this is just going to be kind of like one of those random episodes, I guess. But I have a few game store stories that I wanted to share. Now, for anybody who does not know, I worked at a video game store. It was a mom-and-pop video game shop. Had 2 locations. They closed down a while ago, but they were. It was a local video game shop that I worked for about 2.5 years. This is while I was in high school. So pretty much I ended up leaving because I ended up going to college and just didn't. It wasn't physically as viable to work at the game shop. And then even then, once I was like, once I was making like on-campus money, I was like, wow, this is way better than working retail. So that's why, I'm still in contact. I still visited. I still had the friends there. I always had an open door for me. It was essentially like, hey, dude, I don't know if I ever shared this, but it was like, hey, if you ever want to work some hours here, just let me know and I'll match whatever you're getting paid at college. And I appreciate that offer, but like I never took them up on, like my boss never took them up on the offer there. So there's a couple of stories here I want to share. One of them is about one of my coworkers where she had started. I don't know what it was. It was like she was essentially hired as, and there were several people like this. There were several people who were hired as favors, right? And by this I mean the boss like ended up knowing someone, and this person said, hey, I have a kid who's like 15 or 16. I think it's 16. It had to be at least 16. I have like a 16-year-old kid, and they're looking for a job, and I know you have a game store job, and I was wondering if you would hire them. And here's the thing, right? I'm okay with that to an extent. The issue that I had is that he kept hiring kids, and I can say that, like they're teenagers, sure, let's just say that. He kept hiring teenagers who didn't play video games, who weren't into video games. And he was hiring them as favors to his friends or people that he knew. And it was really frustrating when it's like there's people like me who I knew the tech, I knew the games, I knew this stuff. There's other people with us, and it's like then we're working with people who they barely, like they don't have a system at home. They don't play anything. And it's like, dude, we could get we have so many people asking us for job applications. When we have job applications, we run out in like 2 days. When we have people coming, we have good people, we have qualified people, we have great people who are bringing in great resumes, who have really good credentials with their job applications, and we're not even giving them a second look because we're doing this nepotism stuff right here. That frustrated me. I was friends with the people who got hired, right? Like I grew after, but I got to know them. I got to be friends with them. But it was very frustrating when you just had these people over and over and over again. Some of them who were like incompetent, and when they couldn't run a card reader, they end up giving out like $100 worth of games for free. Yes, that happened. Yes, I don't mind saying it with conviction because I've already shared this story in one of these one of these Mario's Minute episodes. See, I'm stumbling over myself here over this stuff. I don't know which episode it was, so y'all will get to play some hide and seek there, but I did share it in one of them. So this was one of my coworkers. One of these people, she didn't play games or anything, but her and I ended up getting along pretty well. And usually it was odd because it's like when she would work with me, she was pretty good. But then when she would work by herself, she was horrible. And it wasn't like a thing of like, oh, I had favoritism towards her. So I was like, no, I had it measurable. I had results. I had numbers that I could back this up. Because then I would, and it sucked because I would give her like a good review, and then my boss would let her, pretty much drive the store, and they'd be like, dude, what the hell? She's bad. And I'm like, I don't know what happened, man. She was good when she was with me. So after like 2 or 3 times of this, My boss is also very forgiving. I'll put it like that, right? He did a lot of shicey stuff, but he was also forgiving, and he gave people second, third, fourth, fifth chances. So he had good and he had bad. But I remember at one point he was pretty much like, look, we had this wall. We had this wall of like Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Genesis loose cartridges, right? And we wanted to do our inventory right. So we wanted to get actual UPCs in our POS system for them. And we had to look all this stuff up, and it was tedious. And my boss did not want me doing that because it was very boring, very tedious, and I was quite good at my job. And he's like, dude, I need you making money. And I'm like, absolutely. But I had gotten a new computer, right? I'd gotten a new computer that summer, new laptop, and I brought it in. You know, I'd mess around with it at work when we had downtime or whatever. And I remember I hit my coworker with this. Like, she comes through the door, and she was tasked with this, right? And my boss let me know. And I was like, hey, so check this out. And she's like, oh, you got a new laptop? I was like, yeah. She's like, can I try? I was like, yeah, sure. And she's like messing around with it, right? And I was like, it's cool, right? She's like, yeah. I was like, you want to use it? She's like, yeah, I'd love to. I'm like, okay. So I'm going to need you to take the laptop and go over to the corner of the store there, because you're going to have to inventory all of those cartridge games. And she's just like, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah, I'm serious. This isn't coming from me. This is coming from the boss. And I think it shows too. You know what? I'll just say real quick, I'm going to pat myself on the back real quick. Don't do this, right? Don't do this. But like, I was a cool enough employee that I was using my own personal hardware and bringing it in and letting other employees use it for my boss's project right here for his store. That's how much I had love for this store. That's usually, you know, you're trying extra with your first job. But what I'm telling you all is, don't do what I did. If you're tasked with something like that, be like, okay, give me the hardware. I'm not using my personal computer. I'm not using my personal laptop, my personal iPad. Give me the actual hardware. The other thing was too, this was during a time where it's like, I don't think, did we have Wi-Fi at the store? I don't know. We didn't have Wi-Fi at the store. We didn't have Wi-Fi at the store. We did not have Wi-Fi at the store. I'm saying that multiple times because I couldn't get on the Wi-Fi. We got it later on, but I couldn't get on the Wi-Fi. So the best part was, she had this like brand new laptop, this shiny laptop that she could have played around with. It didn't even have internet on it. People are thinking, oh, you can just take your phone, you can hotspot. No, forget about it. Data was so expensive back then. So literally all she could do on my laptop was open up Excel and punch all this stuff in. So she ends up taking the laptop over, and she's just working on this all day, and she's not enjoying herself. And I think after a few hours, I checked on her, and I was like, hey, what's going on? She looks upset. She's like, I'm going to cry. I was like, what? Why? She's like, I lost all my work. I was like, wait, what? And like, I kind of like had a little bit of a smile. She's like, don't laugh. It's not fun. I was like, no, just like, can you explain to me what happened? She's like, I lost all my work. I don't know. And I don't know what I did, right? But like, she explained it to me, and I remember I got down on the ground because the laptop was there, and I remember I was able to recover the document. It took me like a minute or two, but I was able to recover it. And I showed it, and I was like, is this it? And she like looks in disbelief and like freaked out and gave me like the biggest hug. And I'm like, okay, we good. Like, this is good. She's like, yeah. I was like, it looks like there's some stuff missing. She's like, it's fine. I lost like 20 minutes of work. I didn't lose 3.5 hours of work. So there was that. Eventually we did get that done, and we did have the system in place. It was nice. Like, we actually had like the proper like inventory, so we could tell you like how many copies of like Street Fighter 2 on the Super Nintendo that we had, whether they were loose or in box or what have you, and the pricing on them. So we actually had that down, which was good. That wasn't even the story I was trying to tell you all about, though. That's funny. I was trying to tell you all about, I wanted to give the context here because I wanted to tell you all about when later on, this is when I was getting close to leaving, right? She started managing our other store, and it was smaller. And I remember I talked to the boss, and I'm like, dude, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, it's going to be fine. I'm like, are you sure? He's like, look, it's fine, okay? Like, it's a small store. We don't really get as much traffic there. Like, she can't handle the big store here. Like, we need like 2 people handling this one, right? But like the small store, she can do that by herself. Like, she's got keys, she got a code, we good. Like, I double check, triple check with her, we're okay. I'm like, okay, that's fine. So I don't know what I expected, but I didn't expect anything good. But the next day, y'all got to realize, our bigger store opened up an hour earlier, and it closed an hour later than our smaller store. So I roll in there. I believe I was opening that day. And I had one of my coworkers with me. This dude, he was in high school, so he didn't have keys or anything. But like, I key into the store, I do all the stuff, I get it all set up. So we're running for like an hour or so, right? I don't remember how I got word of this, but I got word that the police showed up at our other store, the smaller one. And I'm like, wait, what happened? Because I'm immediately thinking like there was a robbery that happened, which that's a little bit. I'm alluding to that for another story that I've neglected to tell for years. So keep that in mind. I'm not telling this. I don't know when I'm going to tell that episode, but either way, tell that story. Either way, we're going through this. I somehow found out the cops were called to that location. I thought that it had gotten robbed. It turned out, no, the alarm went off. Okay, again, like, did the place get robbed? No. It was my coworker, the one I was talking about, the one with the laptop. She set the alarm off. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then I found out, you got to realize, right? Let me give you all more context to how this works with the first store. When I would open the first store up with my manager, I remember we would show up there, and he had this whole ritual. He would unlock the door. They'd be like, you ready? I said, yep. He would pull the door open, run all the way to the back because we'd hear beeping as soon as the door opened. Then he would go to the back. He would go to the back room. He would punch in the code real quick. It would disable the alarm. I believe the alarm was like when you open up the door, you had to enter in the disarm code within 1 minute. But just to scare us, I believe the higher up said 30 seconds because, it's just better to knock that out. And if you entered it too many times wrong, then the alarm would go off. And pretty much every single point of failure ended up happening. So with that added, I remember I ended up calling the other store and I get her on the line. I'm like, what did you do? And she's just super embarrassed. I'm like, no. I've opened up that store so many times. What did you do? You knew how to do this. And she walks through the process where I guess what happened was she opened up the door and she said she walked to the end of the store. And I'm like, but you can walk there within like 20 seconds. And she's like, yeah, but I dropped the keys. I said, okay. So you pick up the keys. She said, yeah, but then I dropped them again. I'm like, okay. So you walk to the back of the store, you drop the keys twice, you pick them up both times. You should still have enough time, right? Then she said she got freaked out because she thought she was entering her code right, but she entered it wrong. And the alarm was still, like the beeping was still going on. So then she entered it again. And then it was still going on. And I think she tried to enter it a third time, but by that time, the alarm, like the beeping had gone off for a minute. So then the actual alarms were raised. And I'm like, okay, but isn't there like a backup because there was a security company we had? And from what I know, I don't even remember. I'm going to be honest, I don't even remember what the code was. Like, I believe I remember my code, actually, the code I punched in, but the keyword is what I'm going to say because it never got to this point. Apparently, if that alarm goes off, the store would get a phone call. And if you pick up the phone call, it would be that security company, and they would say, hey, can you give us the keyword? And if you gave them the keyword, then they would disable the alarm on their end. So then she ends up getting the phone call, right? So the alarm's going off, the phone starts going off, she picks up the phone, it's the company, they say, what's the keyword? She doesn't know what the keyword is. They're like, okay, ma'am, what is the keyword? She doesn't know what the keyword is. So then, you know what, to their credit, like the system was working. It was a very good test. The system was working. Within like 1 or 2 minutes, police officers come up. It was like 2 or 3 cars deep, just end up cornering the store. And so she just has to sit there. The store is not open, and she has to sit there and explain that she actually is an employee there, but she dropped her keys. She was late to get there. She didn't enter the code properly, and then she didn't know the keyword to disable, like to remotely disable this. Yeah. It's like every point of failure right there. I don't even know how they resolve that, but I think like I want to say the police ended up contacting the boss, and the boss was not happy, but he was like, yes, that is my employee. Yup. Okay. Yup. Just thank you for your service. Yes. Appreciate it. She didn't get fired at that point. Actually, the way she got fired, it was way longer, and it was like it wasn't even firing. It was just like I have some words I can say, but I don't want to say them on this podcast, at least. Essentially, she wasn't getting that many hours at the game shop, so she ended up taking a job at another place, and she was part-time. And then she contacted my boss and said, "Hey, just so you know, I took another job at this other place. It's completely different. It's not going to compete. It's a clothing store essentially. But I just want to let you know because I'm working part-time there, so I'm going to have hours there, and I'd like to, work on my schedule here. So just there might be some things that conflict." And my boss is like, "Oh, okay. Well, thanks for letting me know." She's like, "Okay, cool." And I think that week she had some hours. And then the next week she didn't have any hours. And the week after that she didn't have any hours. And the week after that she didn't have any hours. And at that point she's like, "Okay, dude, like, I'm not fired. I didn't quit. But this is 3 weeks in a row. I'm not getting any hours." And I think by the end she was working like maybe 5 or 6 hours a week. So it was barely anything. So she just stopped going because like he literally did not put her on the schedule anymore. And she was already like, she had to get another job because she wasn't getting any hours, which is fine because I don't think she was like the best at that still. I think her and I are still cool, at least, but I haven't talked to her in a while. But either way, that's a type of movement that the boss would do. So I wasn't too much of a fan of that, but like I understand, hey girl, you need to go get your money. You're not getting it here, you're getting it elsewhere. But she even told me, she's like, "Dude, I didn't like that because I told him, I said it's not going to interfere. I just need to know like these are the hours I work, and I just can't work that like double like at both shops." And he just cut her hours, which you know what, it's fine. Maybe it worked out in the end. I was going to tell this whole other story here, but I just like talked about this one coworker and went on like 3 or 4 story tangents. So I think that's good for the game store stories. Honestly, that was a little unexpected, but that's what happens here on Mario's Minute. So the last thing I wanted to talk about here was what games I'm currently playing. So I'm going to pull up my Switch over here. Now I ended up accomplishing something awesome, right? I ended up reaching maximum level. Very proud of this, right? I don't even, you know what? I'm so proud of this. I'm going to talk about it again here. I ended up reaching the maximum level in Ring Fit Adventure. I believe this was last month I ended up doing that. And for anybody who does not know, Ring Fit Adventure is the exercise game on the Switch. And I've been playing, I ended up getting my Ring Fit setup in late 2019. But I didn't really start using it. I used it like 2 or 3 times, but I didn't really start using it until early 2020. That's when, COVID happened. We all had to stay home and such, and I wasn't going to the gym. So I said, well, I still need to get a workout in. And it was such a good workout for me that I continued to use it now. To this day, I don't have a gym membership, and I just do Ring Fit. I try to watch what I eat, aside from, the food going into my mouth. I try to like actually watch the calories and all that. And then I play Ring Fit. And it's not the best workout, I acknowledge that, but to me it's the best because it is the workout that I can do every day, Monday through Friday. And I think if you're doing that, then that's a fantastic workout. I've said it a few times. For example, like walking 30 minutes a day, it's not super intensive or anything, right? But if that is something that you could do, if you can have yourself walk 30 minutes every single day, that's a good workout. Because the alternative is what? Not walking 30 minutes a day. So, point is, on there's difficulty levels, so the difficulty slider goes from level 1 to level 30. There is a campaign you can work through, and there's like a new game plus, which is harder, and then a new game plus plus, which is even harder, and then after that, there's nothing beyond that, so you're really just like replaying the same levels. So I've just been replaying it for years now. But the point is, it took me about, let's say, 5.5 years, or maybe you could even, if you're going on like the actual like amount and like the playtime and such I had there, it took about 5 years of consistently playing. Because this is when was this? Point is, several years ago. Time doesn't matter anymore. Everything's just blending together. I think it was 2023. 2023, I ended up injuring myself, and I injured myself so bad that I could not work out for several months. It was horrible, and I missed it. I really missed working out. But there was probably 3.5 months. it was about 3.5 months I did not work out. So for like consistently playing the game, it took me about 5 years to get to the maximum level, which I did not look up. I didn't use any cheats, didn't use any trainers, none of that, because I mean, that defeats the purpose of it, right? But the maximum level that you can hit in this game for your character is level 999. So I'm still playing the game right now, but it was nice to actually like beat that. And I played on the most difficult setting as well too. So that is my equivalent that I'm very proud of like a Soulsborne type game. I'm not a Soulsborne type player, right? But the hardest game I've ever played, which I'm still continuing to play, is that Ring Fit Adventure. And I would say that is probably my biggest gaming accomplishment. So for actual games I've been playing, I do have one here. You know, I'm going to talk about this a little bit. And it's going to be a little controversial, I feel like, because the internet loves to hate this game. I end up finishing Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. And people were already mad at me for buying that, right? Not even like people online, really. It was people in my personal life. They're like, you paid for that? You paid $10 for that? Shame on you. Here's the thing. Yeah, I paid $10 for it because I wanted to see what it was about. I'm one of those people, look, I don't really want to follow that status quo there. If people are saying this game sucks, I actually want to play it for myself and see how it is. People say this game is amazing. I want to actually play it for myself to see how it is. Because there's many times there's these games that are horrible, I actually end up enjoying. I'm not saying they're masterpieces, but I end up enjoying them. There's games that are looked at as masterpieces where I'm like, I don't like this. Like, I really don't like this game. And I'll try to play it several times. I'm like, I still don't like it. Like, it's just not clicking with me. So Switch 2 Welcome Tour, I'll just say this, right? After now finishing the game, I actually think $10 is a respectable amount to pay for it. And I don't think it should have been a pack-in game. That's going to be really controversial, I feel like. But the reason why I'm saying that is because I don't think it would have done well as a pack-in game. Because when people think of a pack-in game, they think of something like Wii Sports. Or they think of like an actual game, like what Sega did with like Sonic the Hedgehog, like bundling that in with the Genesis. So this is not a Wii Sports. This is not an Astrobot. This is not even really a Nintendo Land. And Nintendo Land, I would say, had more of a fun factor about it compared to Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. But people really did not rock with Nintendo Land. So if people didn't really like mess with Nintendo Land like that, people were going to hate if Welcome Tour was included. And there's going to be people who say, well, you could just choose to not play the game. But realistically, you get a brand new system. The games are like $70, $80 for it. You don't want to just play the Switch games, but it comes with a free game on here. Let's say Welcome Tour, right? You fire it up. It's not a game you just jump into and you just have a ton of fun with, like Wii Sports or like Astrobot. I'm not saying the game is bad, but you need to be a nerd to really enjoy this game. And I say that lovingly because I'm a big nerd, okay? And I was tickled playing this game. Because essentially, it is like going to an expo, like E3 Expo, except instead of video games, it's an expo or a con entirely about the Nintendo Switch 2. As someone who loves the modding scene with these, who I've taken apart the original Switch, I've worked on repairs, I've taken apart the Joy-Cons, I've reshelled them, I've done this stuff. I was so excited. Do you know how cool it is that you can like learn about the technology and there's really cool demos for it, and you can literally go inside of the controller and inside of the console? You go inside of this stuff, your little character's running around, so your character is like the same size as a 0201 capacitor. You can even go as far as to go underneath the shield of the SoC they even put on those horrible latches that I hate taking off whenever I'm working on like repasting a switch or something. They even put that in. I loved the attention to detail. And I'll say that this game was made for people like me. Am I saying it's a masterpiece? Absolutely not. No. At times it was kind of boring. At times it did kind of drag out a little bit, in my opinion. There's also some reliance on, how, like, some of the demos I did not like. Some of the, like, not the demos, some of the mini games I did not like either. I would say the demos were cooler than the mini games, but some of those mini games I just really did not like. But for $10, I got a lot more than $10 of enjoyment out of it. I'll say that. But again, my controversial take here is I don't think this should have been a pack-in game because I simply don't believe that most people would have understood this game. Most people would have like fired it up and after 2 minutes been like, this is stupid. Why did Nintendo include this? And they would have just closed it out. And then, they give it a review and everyone's giving it like 1-2 stars, whatever it is, because they're like, this game is horrible. Because they're expecting something like a Wii Sports or an Astrobot, which this is not that. So that's my opinion on it. If you're interested, legitimately, if you are interested in the technical nature of the Switch 2, It is a really cool game. But if you are not interested, if that does not excite you at all, if you want something more akin to like an Astrobot or a Wii Sports experience, you're not going to get that here. Get yourself a PS5. It's going to have Astrobot pre-installed on there. You're going to have a great time. Aside from that, the other games I've been playing were Astral Chain. This has been an original Switch game, which I think that the fact that Nintendo dropped this is it's a first-party published game, I believe. The fact that Nintendo dropped this game in 2019 and we never really got anything from it ever again is a crime. Because even back then, I remember playing it. I'm like, this game is awesome. It plays super well. It looks great. It's fun. It's unique. It's awesome. Now, the reason why I didn't really, because I didn't finish it, and the reason why I didn't was because there was a lot of crap that was happening back then. Like, around the time like that happened, I had basement issues, and I had to work on that, and it was like in the middle of me wanting to play Astral Chain. So I think I just had this like negative association with it, but now that so many years have passed, I actually looked at my save. I still saw my save from back then. It had 13 hours of playtime on it. And I said, I remember this game having some odd controls on there, which the controls are still odd, right? It's kind of frustrating, admittedly. But I said, I'm just going to restart this game. I'm just going to wipe this save. You know what? I'm going to feel better because then I don't have to be reminded of what happened then. I'm going to wipe this save. I'm going to start from the beginning. I'm like 3.5 hours in right now. And it's great. And I'm playing it on the Switch 2, and I swear, like, I'm pretty sure the Switch 2 is making it look and play better as well. Because I remember, like, I liked it on the original Switch. But, like, I'm playing on Switch 2. I've played it docked. I've played it handheld. And I'm like, this game looks fantastic. It plays so well. And I'm just sitting there dumbfounded when I play the game. I'm just there like, I cannot believe that this was running on the original Switch hardware. So it's been quite good. I've had a lot of fun with that. One last thing, there was a game that I played recently. I was with some friends, and we stayed up until about 1 a.m. playing a Super Mario Party, Mario Party Jamboree. I think that's what it's called. I mix up the names of these, but it was Jamboree is what I'm saying. Now, I was the only one who had played it before. One of my friends is really into Mario Party, and he had no idea Jamboree ever came out. And then the other two, one of them he plays more on PC, and the other one was his girlfriend. His girlfriend really doesn't play games at all. Now, it was funny because she was just straight up like, I don't want to play this. I don't want to play this. I don't want to play this. And he's like, no, babe, look, we played this. We did this other thing. Like, look, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. She's not understanding the controls. She was doing horrible at all the mini games. We had to take so long because she kept practicing and she would like lose at the practices within like 2 seconds. So she was frustrated the entire time, right? But two magical things end up happening from that gaming session, which is why I love Mario Party so much. It's one of those games I tell people, it's like, even if you don't know how to play games, you're still going to have fun with it, and you never know what's going to happen with Mario Party. So two things end up happening. One, there was a double Bowser Revolution, which I've never seen before. If you don't know what this is, when you land on a Bowser space, you'll get propelled down to see Bowser, and then you'll get to have kind of a gambling choice over what effect is going to happen. And one of them is Bowser Revolution, which essentially it impacts everyone. It takes everyone's coins away from them, and then it redistributes them evenly. So it could be very good or very bad, depending on what side you're on there, essentially. So what happened was one of my friends who went before me ended up getting a Bowser Revolution. And it's great because one of my best friends, whenever we play together, he loves to shout out whenever we get a Bowser space, like, Bowser Revolution! That's his favorite one, right? So I did the same thing. All my friends, they've never played this. They're like, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that, like, can you explain this? Like, dude, what's going on? Everyone's coins get taken away. They start screaming, and I'm laughing, and then everyone's coins get redistributed, and then everybody is at first place. And I'm like, guys, look, so see, it worked out. And then my friends, like, one of the competitive ones, he's kind of grumpy because he's like, well, it's not actually first place. I'm like, look at the screen, dude. It's first place. He's like, well, no, it's not actually first place. I'm like, no, everyone is in first place. Look at the screen. Look at the screen. 1, 1, 1, 1. Everyone's first place. Then what happened right after I landed on the same space, and I got Bowser Revolution as well. And they're freaked out because they just saw what happened. And I nearly fell over. I was dying laughing, like to the point where my friend's girlfriend had to tell me to stop laughing. But I was laughing so hard because they're panicked about it. I'd never seen this before. And then when it ends up happening, they're like, wait, nothing happened. It was the same thing. I'm like, exactly. It was so useless. That's why it was so funny to me. But then the magical thing that happened from all that was, again, I'm just playing the game to enjoy it, right? One of my other friends who brought his girlfriend, he's just enjoying as well too. His girlfriend's just mad the entire time playing this game. And then our other friend, the fourth, he is really competitive, right? So he's like, you know how the competitive people are. Maybe you are one as well too. The girlfriend ended up winning in the end. And I was dumbfounded. And I remember I just shook her head. I shook her hand. I'm like, hey, congratulations on your win. That's awesome. And even like, I think even the competitive friend, he was kind of like, he was just kind of gritting his teeth a little bit with it. But it was unexpected. And I was like, guys, this is why I said you got to play Mario Party to the end. You never know who's going to win. Just because you're good at the game does not mean you're going to win. And like, look what happened right here. So now it's great because the thing is, my friend now has told me that it's a little bit annoying because his girlfriend now keeps saying, we need to get that Switch set up. We need to get a Switch. We need to get this game. Ooh, I need to get a Switch set up. I need to get that Switch with that game, and I'm going to be competing. And then when we have another party, I'm going to know, like, I'm going to be the master of this. I'm actually going to be good. Oh, dude, we need to invite him. We need him to come over. We need to invite him over with his Switch setup. And he was just hearing nothing about the Switch. And he's like, dude, it's kind of annoying now because I know for a fact that if she did not win, this would have just been done. But all because she won that game, I'm hearing nothing about Switch. Like, I hear nothing but Switch at this point. It's Switch that, Mario Party this. So now he's sufficiently annoyed with it. But yeah, those have been some of the games I've been playing. So, you know, I'm surprised I made it to about an hour of this episode, but I think that's a good stopping point here. So thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching, however you're tuning in here. If you haven't made it to the end of these episodes here, I like to pick a keyword or a key phrase. And if you use this keyword or key phrase in a comment on the video upload, I'll know that you made it to the end of this episode. So for this episode, how about win? Could you describe like something that you're winning at? Can you describe your favorite win in a game? Maybe your favorite win in a sport? Maybe a win that was really unexpected? A win that maybe you were banking on and you were shocked that didn't happen? Maybe a life win, like something that you just want to share, that like a major accomplishment you had or something that you just want to share with people, right? I'm going to be looking in the comments as I usually do, but if you use the keyword win in your comment, on the in the video upload here, I know that you made it to the end. And actually, wait, I just realized this could be a lot of them. It could be WIN, it could be WHEN, it could be ETA win. It could also be Vietnamese as well too. I guess if you want to drop a last name, you could do that. Either way, use the keyword win, and I'll know that you made it to the end of this episode. And that's about it for this episode, everyone. This is Mr. Mario, signing off. Thank you all for listening and watching. If you enjoyed this episode, a like would absolutely be appreciated. If you didn't like it, a dislike is fine as well too. But again, as I always say, this is Mr. Mario, signing off. Thank you all for listening and watching, everyone. And until next month.